protect the audiovisual recording with a view towards changing or enforcing items of that bylaw. He's asking that the bylaw be suspended, at least as I take it temporarily, until we can have a report from the administrator as to what has perhaps transpired in I take it in other locations. Is that what I'm getting from? Okay. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, Trustee Watson seconds that motion. So now we'll leave this open for discussion. So it's your motion, Trustee Vickens, so you get to go first.
Again, I stated why I put the motion forward. I have no problem with audio-video recording. It's usually done in such a way that I've done some research on what other municipalities, other improvement districts do. They actually do it themselves. And when they do it themselves, that way it's copyrighted and it can't be abused. So actually we discussed this subject at our training session with Allison, very experienced lady with municipalities, governments, what was the right thing to do, and that was her suggestion. So following on that, again, I have no problem with audio-video recording. We do need to, because of privacy rights with the question period, we need to understand fully how that's to be done. It's not being done correctly at this time. So that's another concern that we have. So again, I put the motion forward from the emails of concern from the ratepayers.
You got it wrapped around your desk.
You gotta go counterclockwise, Peter. Gorgeous mic.
Thank you, Trustee Benton. I certainly understand what you're trying to achieve with your motion, but I'm not so sure that we can actually make a motion to suspend a bylaw. That would be most unusual, as far as I know, to actually have a motion to suspend a bylaw. If we can suspend this bylaw, that would mean we could suspend any bylaw that had been duly constituted and passed. So I think your motion to suspend the bylaw is actually perhaps out of order at this point in time until we have some more advice as to how to do that, if that's what you really want to do. You can make a motion to have a bylaw rescinded, but I believe that's a little different process, and I would be surprised if it didn't have to receive approval from Victoria in order to do that, because to single out a bylaw and suspend it would open up all of the bylaws to question from the board at any time. They could vote to suspend this or suspend that, and that would be kind of chaos. So perhaps our administrator can get some advice from Victoria on this matter, whether or not Board of Trustees can suspend bylaws, or do they have to rescind bylaws and make new bylaws?
Well, I'll fix that problem. I'll amend my motion that we suspend audio-video recording until we understand what we need to do properly. Again, we've had several emails about the abuse of the audio-video recording. I felt it might be better to suspend the bylaw, but if that's not, Jim's got a good point there. So my motion, I make a motion to suspend audio-video recording at our meetings until we have our administrator will research and find out what the right thing for us to do is. As it is now, bylaw 263 is not being followed in any way, shape, or form. There's no warnings given. There's no, so it's actually a bylaw that's being abused. So again, I amend my motion. So Glenn.
Okay, we're in discussion here. You did change your motion, okay? Could I have a seconder to that motion as it has been amended?
I'll second
Okay, Trustee Lawson has seconded the amendment to that motion. So we're back in discussion. Trustee Elder.
Well, again, we do have a bylaw, and to change a bylaw by suspending something in the bylaw lends itself to the same argument I made on your original motion. I don't think we can, if bylaw 263 is being violated, then that's a different story. But to suspend audio-visual recording when it is allowed under bylaw 263, in my mind, is an incorrect way of doing things. That's why we have bylaws, so that the rules are laid out, or the fees, or whatever the bylaw is concerned about. And I don't think we can just suspend part of a bylaw in that manner.
Yeah, but like you say, Jim, this thing has been violated. There's been a lot of times been no permission. They've done whatever they wanted, and afterward it's been put out in the internet, misused. It's not been put out there for the purpose it should be. I think there should be video, audio taping, but the way it's going now, it's totally abused. And I think it's not in the best interest of the landowners of Union Bay, and I do believe it should be suspended, because it has been abused, until further notice, until we can bring it back into order.
Trustee Kelcher, care to weigh in on this?
I'm hesitant to weigh in on something that I believe is out of order. And, you know, unless one of the administrators can confirm that suspending a bylaw is absolutely fine, I'm not prepared to further discuss this.
The motion has changed. Mr. Chair, the motion has changed, so...
To what?
To suspending the audio
It's the same thing. It's the same
No,
thing.
it's not, really.
Yes, it is.
Anyway, item 61 clearly states in the bylaw 263, where a concern arises involving inappropriate recording or sharing of personal recorded audiovisual material, the board will review the use and may take any such action as it considers appropriate against any person found to be contravening this restriction. So, again, I am not asking to put the bylaw aside, and I asked about suspending audio-video recording, and I will state under item 61, we've had 12 emails requesting that we take action. I am taking action under item 61 of bylaw 263, which tells us that we can actually do what we're doing.
Under a review.
While again, I believe the board, if they believe that provision of bylaw 263 has been violated, can take action against that individual, I do not believe the board can unilaterally suspend audio-visual recording unless there has been a violation of the bylaw. So, in other words, if someone else, I think, you know, if another landowner, obviously there's only one person here that does the video recording, but if another landowner showed up and wished to video record providing they met all the requirements of bylaw 263, they have every right to do so.
Well,
Free speech, I guess.
do you have anything to say, Peter?
Well, the board definitely has the power to enforce bylaws, otherwise why would we have them? All I can tell you is that we'll put it to a vote here, and where that takes us, it takes us. So everybody is weighed in on this, I presume.
Could we have the motion read back again, please?
Okay, would you mind reading your motion back again, please, Mr.?
So I amended my motion. I make a motion the audio-video recording at the Improvement District meetings be suspended until we can evaluate the options available. I am asking for this under item 61 on bylaw 263 that allows us to do that. We need to adapt a process that is beneficial to the Improvement District ratepayers and trustees.
Can I have one more comment, please?
You.
So, Trustee Bitton, you're telling me that if CBC or someone like that showed up and wished to record our meeting, you would not allow them to?
I should sit together.
Well, that's a good question, Jim, and actually on the internet they speak about that, where some municipalities, or if there is a TV station that would do the audio-video recording, that it's copyrighted by the municipality or the Improvement District, and they have control over it, and it's done by the TV station. So I'm suggesting what we need to do is get control of what's going, the audio video in our meetings, and it also has to be done for the privacy rights of people during the questioning period. So there's a lot of things going on here that, we're not following bylaw 263 by any way, shape, or form. There's notification to be given, there's notification on the agenda, it's not happening. So until we get a process in place that's effective, and I see no reason why we can't question this bylaw with item 61 states that we can do exactly that. So I think we should proceed with the vote unless anybody's got anything else to say.
Well, point of order, you have not provided us with bylaw 260, whatever it is, for us to examine here. You've sprung this motion, and I believe the motion is out of order.
Yeah.
We discussed this at our training session at great length, Trustee Kelcher, and you were very well aware of what we were going to talk about today. It wasn't put on the agenda, but again, I was surprised when it wasn't on there as we discussed it at great length with Allison, asked her for direction. This is not a surprise to anybody, so please don't say that.
We did not discuss this, your motion, at great length at the training. And I resent your implication. You clearly had a motion in mind. It's your responsibility to have given it to us in advance, written, as well as ensuring that the bylaw is included in our handout so that we could look at what you're referencing. That's basic informed decision making. So I think, again, this is out of order, and I can't, in good conscience, vote on something that's presented in this manner.
Well, again, like I say, I agree, 61. I think that we can, we're putting it aside here now to review, so, Trustee Kelcher. I mean, that's what we're doing. We are going to review it. And, you know, we're not saying it's not gonna happen again. We're gonna view it that it has been abused, and I think you know yourself it has been abused. And, because even after the last meeting that was adjourned, it continued to go on, the videotaping. So I think it's a very serious issue that we should be really looking at and continuing on with. And I feel the same way as Trustee Benton, so that's all I have to say.
As I mentioned earlier, we definitely have an enforcement responsibility as a board. One of the tools of the enforcement, I suppose, could involve suspending the audio-video recording of these meetings temporarily until we've had a report from the administrator and his recommendations. So therefore, I would call upon a vote on the matter. So those in favor of Trustee Benton's amended motion, please raise your hand.
Could you just read it out once more? It was to suspend audio-video recording?
Temporarily.
Yes. Trustee Benton, would you read it out again, please?
Well, I've amended it, so I don't have it written down perfectly, but the motion, do you guys have it, administrators, do you have the motion? The amendment?
Every time, so I was going to ask you for your written copy.
Okay, well, I'll have to write my copy out as I amended it. So, my motion is to suspend audio-video recording in bylaw 263, stating item 61, that states very clearly that we can take action, and we need to evaluate the options available to us. We need to adopt a process that is beneficial to the improvement district ratepayers and trustees. So I'll write that out.
You gotta have one more. So your motion is to suspend all audio-video recording, is that correct?
No, the administrator would continue to record for the minutes.
Yeah, I think that's a little different. But, so your motion, as I wrote it down, was to suspend audio-video recording temporarily.
Yeah.
All audio-video recording. Members of the press, anybody that should show up, is not able to record these meetings.
That's a little nervous.
Until we have an effective plan in place.
When will that be?
Okay,
That's wrong.
everybody down here, we'll take a vote on it.
Further discussion.
Those in favor of the motion, raise your hands. Okay, those opposed to the motion, raise your hand. Okay, it comes down to me again. I am going to vote for the motion for the reasons stated by Trustee Benton. I feel that that has made a case here. Therefore, the audio-visual recordings, with the exception of those made by the board, will be suspended temporarily until we have a full report from Mr. Mason, our administrator, as to how we proceed from there. So therefore, after tonight, there will be no outside audio-video recording of the meetings, with the exception of the official one conducted by the board. Okay, we next move on to matters of correspondence. Trustee Kaiser, you had something you wish to say?
I'd like the votes recorded as well, the names of voters. Thank you.
Very well. With correspondence, you had something you wish to bring up?
Yeah. the habit has been by this board to, for the chair to answer landowner questions. And again, following our training, which was long overdue, it's very clear that the chair, unlike each of us trustees, we all have a voice, and our voice has the same weight, and we are well within our rights to express a differing opinion. That's actually why we're elected, to do that. The chair, however, has a little bit of a restriction in that when they speak, they must either speak on behalf of the entire board, including the board minorities, and I believe Allison's words were that the chair's responsibility is to actually protect the minority voice. In other words, make sure that the minority voice is heard. So further, when, for example, landowner questions are answered, meaning letters that are sent in by correspondence, the chair needs to make sure that we all have a say in the question that's being presented. And if the chair answers without consulting with the trustees, as has actually often been the case, the chair must identify that what he or she is saying is their own opinion, and then offer an opportunity, if any trustee has something, a differing opinion, allow them to give their opinion. Ideally, and I think this was brought up again in our training by Allison, it's actually better that the chair discusses with the trustees beforehand, so that there is a unity amongst the board in answering questions. And that has been why I have spoken either to ask a question of clarification or to offer a differing opinion, as is my right to do as a trustee. So, and it's not to undermine the board, it's because I have a differing opinion, and I am entitled to express that opinion. So that was what I wanted to remind us all, is that the chair cannot unilaterally, without consultation, speak for all of us. The chair does have the right, of course, as we all do, to express his or her own views. But it's important that they identify, if they haven't consulted with us, that it is in fact their own view. So I believe at the training with Allison, I think we were all really sincere in wanting to move forward as a board. And a big problem was recognition of the order of speaking, and that's why we made the effort to change the seating, because the meeting is not us talking to the landowners, it is actually a business meeting amongst us, and we need to be looking to the chair for order of speaking. So that was all I wanted to say about correspondence, and yeah, if anybody has any questions or a differing opinion, please jump in.
Thank you, Trustee Calger, for that observation. We're going to move on next to the questions from landowners in attendance. As I mentioned earlier, there's always an opportunity at the end of these meetings to field questions from the audience. They have to be a question, and it has to be in a respectful manner. So Having said that, this lady over here, you can direct it to the chair, or you can direct it to
I'll
the other
direct it to you.
trustees through me.
I'll direct it to you. A landowner had asked you about the conflict of interest where you and Trustee Loxham met with Brian McMahon on June 7th last year. And she's asked, also she was using Trustee Loxham's letter to Trustee Elliott about why he felt he wasn't in conflict. You responded to her saying, a check of the minutes of the meeting held on June 6th have failed, as you have pointed out, to come up with any supporting documentation for this letter you refer to. So given that Kevin takes wonderful minutes, there was nothing, you couldn't find anything in the minutes of that meeting authorizing you and Trustee Loxham to meet with Brian McMahon and negotiate with him. Given that, and that's an obvious conflict of interest, will you and Trustee Loxham recuse yourselves from having anything to do where Kensington Island Properties is involved? What? What's this guy saying to me? Telling me to go home?
Okay, first of all, yes, that's correct. We could find, there was no, this direction, if you want to call it that, from then Chair Ms. Molstad was not recorded in the minutes for that meeting.
Right.
However, I was a trustee at the time. I was not a chair. We did receive direction from Chair Molstad, and we did have a meeting with Mr. McMahon.
But you have no proof of that. You can't prove it. It's only your word.
Yes, that's right.
But everything else, don't you, my concern is that this board isn't concerned with accuracy. And if you're going to defend yourselves against a conflict of interest accusation, then you must have something to defend yourself with, and you don't. You met without the authority of the board.
That did not happen.
Yes, it
Simple
did.
as that. No.
Well, you don't have proof that you had authority, right?
Both of us are in attendance here tonight.
It doesn't matter. You can't prove
We
it.
were given
You
direction.
can't prove it.
Are you going to listen, or are you
Go
already
ahead.
minute?
I'd like to see some proof.
Proof you have is my testimony and his. And we're not lying, okay? It was,
So is Chair Molstad lying because she said she didn't give you that authority?
how do you know that?
Because she
never
said,
that to me.
there's an email. Ask Trustee Calger.
Hang on a sec. You want to weigh in on this? Okay.
I have an email from Carol Molstad dated November 18th, 2016, and she states that no motion was made by the board to ask them, Loxham and Jakes. I think I got it right. Yeah.
Thank you.
And it was not deliberate, it's just the way the name was said to me. Okay, lost my place. No motion was made by the board to ask them, Loxham and Jakes, to approach KIP. They initiated that contact on their own since no motion was made, and I, as the chair, could not act independently from the majority of the board, which is why I said what I did just prior to this conversation.
Shame.
There was no, so I'm going to read that sentence again. Since no motion was made and I, as the chair, could not act independently from the majority of the board, there was no authority for them to act.
Trustee Loxham, you were the one that posed the question to then Chair Carol Molstad. You were right, it was not in the form of a motion. However, would you care to tell us what you said there?
Well, it's quite a long story, but it doesn't really
Can't hear us.
I have no problems telling you it. Well, we started off, I mean, we got sworn in. The whole board, the 3 trustees and the administrator all took holidays consecutively for 2 months. And before we left, I asked the chair, Olsted, why